Welcome to the RP Show with me, Steve Johnson.
And me, the Tibet Maniac.
Join us as we share hints, tips, and insights of how to live an awesome life with retinitis pigmentosa.
Here we are, guys. We are back for another episode of the RP Show. Steve, what do we got?
Well, Tubes, last week you asked me around what apps I use, and I shared with you some of my knowledge, dropped a proper knowledge bomb on you around all the, AI and stuff. If anyone's not seen that episode, go check it out. But this week, I thought we'd flip the script and you can teach me something.
I like it. So what are you thinking?
So I thought it'd be really cool if you could talk to me and our viewers and tell us all about running as a blind/low vision athlete.
So you're trying to, you would like to know about if there's possible groups or things that somebody who is visually impaired who maybe thought they couldn't run anymore.
Yeah.
And we're wondering if there's maybe some type of organization that they could reach out to. And
exactly.
All right. Yes. The biggest one, and they're international, because literally in their name, is Achilles International, and they have chapters all over the world. I've literally seen the Achilles International Brazil chapter. I've seen athletes from the Mexico chapter.
Okay, so just into it there. So the name of the organization is Achilles, as in
International.
Achilles.
Yeah,
Achilles
like your
International.
Achilles. Yeah, that's what they're known by. And then, like I said, depending on where you are, then it'd be your chapter name. So you could be like, I'm in Connecticut, so we are the Achilles International Connecticut chapter. Okay,
so we will put the links down below to their. What have we got, like a main website that we can put in, or?
Yep, you can go. Yep, there's AchillesInternational.org.
Excellent.
And then check it out there, and you can find out by going there if there's actually a chapter not far from you.
Okay, so educate me then, Mike. If you're a blind runner, and you probably sat there thinking, oh, there's no way I could do a marathon or a half marathon because I can't see where I'm going, and I just wouldn't be able to manage at a big event. Be too many people. There's people running around. It's a huge, really busy starting grid. That's not true, is it? Because you have done it in New York Marathon, London Marathon, very, very busy, very, very, congested. A lot of blind people will be scared of doing a run in like the London Marathon or the New York Marathon just because it's so busy. So how does it work? How do you stay safe? How do you run in a crowd? How do you do it?
I think the best way to answer that question is to take it back a little bit from where my journey with Achilles started, to explain how the process and how it all began. And that goes back to 2014, where I actually was still, driving, still, sighted to a degree, kind of coming close to my driving career. And I was doing the funding. I was a charity runner, actually, for the FFB, the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I got a spot in the New York City Marathon. So I did that, and while I was running,
your first marathon?
That was my first marathon, was the New York City Marathon back in 2014, and you had
pretty good vision still, but you were
terrible night vision. Oh no, definitely struggling, because that was the last really solo thing I ever did, because I remember going, wow, I can't do this. Like, even during that year of training, that was like, I couldn't run by myself. I would run on the track, and I used river walks and things like that were safer for me to actually do, because I was got to a point even then where it was like,
you were like searching out routes where there was no obstacles and places where
you knew. I was already trying to figure out things where I could safely run,
okay.
Without tripping on curves, and because I was already discovering that, wow, things are like coming at me really fast, and I'm having a really hard time navigating this. Like, what? I don't know what's going on. I mean, obviously I knew it was my vision, but it was just like really a big whoa, but then here I am training for the New York City Marathon, and I need to, get out there. So those are the best things to do. So, and, so yeah, when I ran that, I remember that whole process going, man, I couldn't do this. I couldn't imagine doing this again, because my friends dropped me off. It was pitch black. I had to find my way in a sea of runners and be like, oh, I'm going to follow them. and just hopefully I get on the right bus. And I remember getting into the security for my corral, and I couldn't see the security to the basket to put my stuff in, that to go through. So I had to explain to the lady I'm visually impaired, and she was, oh, I'll help you out. And so that was all cool, but
so when you were
that's a lot.
navigating through all of that you just said, were you a cane user at the time or no?
Nothing yet. This was like I said,
okay.
This is kind of in that, I'm in that that gray area, I guess we would say, kind of like where you're still able to kind of drive, because for some reason it's just hard to explain to people that driving was easier for me. But yeah, obviously I was not driving much at night anymore. And obviously I was actually not driving as much if I didn't have to. So like, in other words, having my friends drop me off at the race, I didn't drive myself to New York City. It's just, that would not be what I want to do. So I would always choose, other options like that. So that was really a big awakening of like, all right, I need to start thinking about my next journey. And I didn't have an answer, until actually doing that race, because I was like, I saw a pace group for the New York Roadrunners, and it was for a slightly faster time than I was planning to run. And I was like, well, if I run with them and I can't hang with them, at the end of the day, I'll probably still have a faster time than I was expected. So I was like, okay. So I ran with the 5:45 group, and I met this girl, Jen, who we're still friends with to this day. And we got to chatting. She was the pace runner, and we just chatted all the time. And I told her about my vision, and she was the one that explained to me that there was an organization that provided guides for impaired athletes, like who are like in wheelchairs or visually
you literally
impaired,
found out as you were running.
As I was running, talking to her all about it. Like, so I look at her and go, wait a minute. So like you mean like a guide dog, but they provide me guide humans? Like that's
guide human?
And like that's pretty awesome, So it was after that I had signed. I
were you picturing, like, at that time, a guide human dressed in like a dog costume?
Exactly, but yeah,
a giant Labrador man running in front
yeah,
of
I
you.
just running with me. Yeah, I just thought it was like, what? Like that's like crazy. That's awesome. So that was exciting. So as soon as I was on with that, I found out, yes, there was a Connecticut chapter, and I sent an email and all that stuff to them, like wanting to sign up and all that stuff. But then my thing was, I was still driving, and I was still, I was still working, still kind of all my thing. I think I was just kind of preparing myself for that future.
The beautiful awkwardness of RP. When
Yeah.
Don't fit in any group.
Yeah. But I was smart, I feel, in the fact that I was, embracing. I remember getting my blind runner shirt. Like I got it like December of like 2014, like shortly after signing up, and it was like almost like a gun punch, because you're like, I don't like this. I don't like that it says blind runner. I don't
like to label myself,
that.
But now I've got a giant label.
Yeah. So there's that part of me. It's like, this is it. Like this is my future, just not yet, but it's here. It's coming.
Yeah,
so
I didn't. So it sort of feels a bit more real to you.
Yeah. So after you sign up, I did all that. Now, normally you would, like I said, you would, they would show you the events and things that they're doing, and you could say, hey, I'm interested in running that. So I held off because obviously I'm still driving. So how weird would it be if I pulled up to a race and be like, well, yeah, I drove here, but now you're going to guide me around, because it's harder for me to run by myself than it is to drive. Then nobody would get that. Like it's just tough to explain. So I wasn't comfortable with that yet. So I held off all the way until almost a year later. Like November was my November 2015. We do fill a pantry race. We do that every year. And I did that 5K, and that was my first race. And what they do is you get there, the system's a little different now. It's a lot more streamlined now than it was back then. But you just, woke up, you get paired with usually a guide, or if it's a bigger race, it's 2 guides. That was just one I got. I think I actually know. I think I might have had 2 guides there, but I think actually that one I might have had 2 guides. Weirdly enough, I think I might have had 2 guides still, but now they've changed it. But back then, that's usually how it is. They pair you with new people. Sometimes, like even up till now, I might get new guides that have just joined, because I tend to be really a little easier to navigate. I'm a pretty easy person to guide. So I can, for new people that are just kind of getting to Achilles and volunteering, they'll send people up to train, and they're usually trained beforehand. Like these people they can't guide an athlete until they actually finish their training.
So
So
they've
once
had
they
some
finish,
kind of official training of how to be a
yeah,
good guide. It's not
beforehand.
just some, random dude
No. Like
sat on the
now they have it.
side.
So yep, they have that. They
So,
have to have their kind of training first.
so if we just pause a second, then. So obviously, I've done quite a few runs myself and half marathons and 10Ks and stuff. Very, very busy ones. And when I have ran with a guide, I've always used a tether. So for the people that maybe don't know how it works, talk us through, your first experience. Were you tethered? Did you have one guide, two guide, three guides? How did your very first one work, and how did you feel doing it? How did it go? How did it work?
No, see, I have actually just recently started tethering, believe it or not. So most of the time, I was always comfortable as long as I usually run like I would say if I had two guides, I would do the V formation. I would have one kind of each one of my guides just slightly in front of me,
Okay.
and
So
and
you're
as long
like
as
a
they're
you're like a
talking,
backwards V. You've got two people
yeah,
sort of out front,
yeah,
and you're sort of just
yeah,
trying to stay in the middle of them using your
and
tunnel
just
to
yep.
like sort of triangulate your position.
Yep, and I just kind of always use my arms to like, if I, not get too close to him, I can bump into him a little, it's like, nothing too crazy. My vision was always pretty good. So I really I didn't feel the need to have a tether, and I always kind of fought off the tether actually for a long time. So I was like, I'll use it when I'm ready for it. Kind of like the cane in a way, like where
Yeah.
it was like, it's just, I didn't feel like I was ready for it. And why
Okay.
am I going to start using it if I don't need it yet? So, but now I'm learning differently actually, now that I'm using it, that it's like,
Well, let's stick to
makes you faster.
let's stick to how it was in the beginning, because then people listening can follow
Yeah,
along the journey. Because if
absolutely.
there's some kid listening to this who's thinking, I don't really need a guide, I'm still driving, but I do need some help. Your first system where you were running in this V shape, that's fine if you need help,
Yeah.
but you don't need a cane.
Yep.
So how were they helping you? Were they just
They're the
calling out
ones,
like
yes.
obstacles,
What
bumps?
real simple stuff. I always had it. I always told my guides I was real simple. I only wanted one kind of word kind of things, just like, cone coming up, cone, cone on your
Is it
left,
curb or is it
curb,
obstacle? Yeah, okay.
taking a left, taking a right, just they were there for just that.
So
It provided that kind of extra comfort.
It's like voiceover for running.
Yeah, they provide that, and it's that extra comfort because now that it gives you that confidence because you have someone at least there that that is your backup just in case your own eyes kind of fail. Because obviously I'm still scanning myself, and and I'll tell my guys sometimes, yep, see a curve coming up, see this. Like I'm communicating. It's the job of the athlete as much as it is the guide to communicate. Back.
Yeah.
It's not all on them to just be a guy, to just help me. Like we're a team, and the guiding actually takes place not at the race. The guiding takes place as soon as we're paired up. So as soon as as soon as I'm there and they come over and say, hey, Mike, I'm, like go say Stephanie or something. I'm your guide today. And you're just like, oh, thanks. Like, that's it. Like they're guiding me. Means they're responsible for me the moment we might meet up until the moment after the race. And even while I'm there, until we both leave, that person is responsible for it.
I'm really glad you've said that, because I think one of the barriers to this, people might be thinking, they might have been and watched the race. If you've been to watch the New York Marathon or you've been to watch the London Marathon, you might be thinking, oh, it's just so busy, there's no way I could do it. But what Mike's saying is, as soon as you arrive, you're getting your guide, and they're going to help you through the crowd. They're going to help you into you called them corrals, didn't you? I call it a starting grid. So, for people watching this, I've never done a run before. You tend to get put into zones of what your likely speed is going to be, so that you're not like having to overtake hundreds of people. So Mike's saying the guiding starts straight away. The people help you. So if you don't need to worry, do you? They're taking, they're making you feel more comfortable because you've got somebody.
Like, for instance, fast forwarding to 2016, that was my first a New York City marathon with Achilles. And I did kind of the same procedure. I went Saturday, a friend of mine took me to the expo. We went together and we got my bib and all that stuff. And then, I think, that was the same. We did the same thing. And then Sunday, I, got on a train station, met I think I met up with my guides. I can't remember exactly. It's been so long since I did 2016, but we met up with my guides, at New York, so like, oh, I remember now. I remember I had to just get to my hotel. So I remember my friend, we went to the expo that Saturday, and then instead of normally I would go back home, but since I was staying at a hotel with Achilles, I had to get off a different stop afterwards. So he just stayed with me until I got off that stop.
Nice.
And then I, for the first time, navigated New York City with my cane. I had a cane at that point in time.
Okay.
And yeah, got to my hotel. So, a nice lady helped me get to the front desk, and I just boom got into my hotel room, or my room, and then from there it was just everyone was there. My fellow my guides and things like that. So that was
Okay. And then
don't
just
worry
a
about
little
it.
point. You touched on this earlier. I just want to bring you back to it a little bit.
Okay.
So you mentioned the dreaded blind runner t-shirt, which me and you have spoken about many times. So on the first run, did you have the blind runner t-shirt, or was that phased in later? When did you
Oh
start
no,
that
I
from the
always
beginning?
that's always what I wear. But that's it says Achilles International. Like, can I get or can
So
I
you
get
did that
chapter
on day
logo,
one on
and
your first
always
run with
yep,
a
every time you
guide.
run, it's always I always have that on.
And just
Yeah, always.
just explain to the people, what's that vest for? What does it do? What's the purpose of it? What does it look like? Is it bright colored?
Well, I asked my Aaron, who's our chapter president, I said, why can't this just say visually impaired athlete? Like, why can't this say or visually impaired runner? And I guess the New York chapter has them actually, but ours said blind runner, and she said because it's easier for someone to kind of quickly see, like another person,
Yeah.
another athlete or somebody like you're running by, or just for them to go, oh, blind runner, and to get out of
Yeah,
the way.
I agree with that, but I also know why you don't like saying blind.
yeah, right.
Especially back then when you had a lot better vision than what you had
Yeah, like
now.
I'm not. Yeah, right. I'm not like. Yeah, this is.
Yeah.
It's
And it's
tough to
funny
put
because
down.
obviously when I go skiing, I wear one saying blind skier, and it's the same scenario because I thought to myself, I made it myself. I had it printed, but I could have chose, anything I like. But
Yeah,
again,
right.
I was thinking, if you're skiing at 60, 70 miles per hour,
You-
I want to say, hi, I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I may or may not have seen you coming. So please be
yes.
careful and give me a lot. By the time
Yeah,
they've read it, I'll probably be
you've
dead.
already hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get the whole logic behind it. So
So sorry,
I
let
don't
me just
think
ask
it'll
you:
that bother me.
does it say on the front and back, or is it just the back?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's back. It's smaller actually on the front, and it's bigger on the back.
Okay, and it just says blind, big writing.
Big block.
Anything else?
Yeah. Big block letters. And just blind runner. And
And
I think that was fine.
do the guides have anything on their backs?
There's usually says guide.
Oh, okay.
They'll just say guide, on the front and the
So,
back.
folks, for people listening, if you picture this, I mean, if you're totally blind or you're partially sighted, whatever, if you just picture, if you're in a running up, if you picture the scene that Mike's explaining, you'd have Mike in a high vis, bold print thing saying blind runner on his back. And then you'd notice he's got someone on the left, someone on the right saying guide. So the idea is people running up wouldn't then try and cut in between you or run through you. They might hopefully see and be like, oh, that's a blind runner. I better give them a wide berth. Now, Mike and I have talked this in the past. I found, I don't know if this has been your experience, Mike, that some people see it and therefore give you plenty of space, which is awesome. Have you ever had times when people don't see it and they still like cut through you or just don't read it?
That tends to only happen at the New York City Marathon.
Really?
Yeah, 2016 was terrible. Like I remember 2016.
Just because it's
it
so
was like,
busy, do you think? Or
I had to pick up. This was back then when we were able to pick up extra guides at the halfway point. We used to have like extra kind of people waiting just in case if you needed, an extra or exchange a guide runner. So
okay.
I was having such problem with a lot of people cutting right in between us, which I mean for a blind or visually impaired athlete is terrible.
Oh,
Just
especially
not
for us
good.
with tunnel
So
vision, that's like shock. So
yeah,
scary, isn't
boom,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Nowhere. Bang,
So
you do the
my
weird
guy,
twitch.
so one of my guys getting pissed, like he's getting pissed off at people. He's yelling at them, like, and then another guy, like it really got really bad because at a water station, a goose slammed into us, and
Wow.
it was. I think it was not his fault. It was because somebody else cut in front of him. Something happened, so it really was getting really like kind of dangerous. So we at the halfway point picked up a third guide, and we had the third like one person hanging the back. My the guy was like he hung on the back so he can
Wow. That sounds
block people
awesome.
essentially, right?
you had like a rolling roadblock, like a police chase.
So now I feel I'm super comfortable because like, I don't have now I got like a whole team of, guides around me, which that's the only time I've ever had 3. And it was really cool because you just, like I said, you're not worrying anymore about that. But yeah, no, I've had some crazy stuff where like I remember on New York City Marathon, I was running in I think it was 2018 or 2019, maybe 2018. And I remember, no, it's 2019. I remember it was 2019. A guy in front of me was filming with a GoPro, and he saw somebody else filming with a GoPro at like a fan, like a spectator, and he stopped dead in front of me, like during the, and there's somewhere I want to see that video. Somewhere there's a video of me slamming into this dude at like full force and just running right through him, like. It was bad. Like my guide was like once again, one of my guys, she was pissed off. I should make sure I'm okay. Like it's like that kind of stuff is like, it happens a lot more than people realize. So, and actually, and that was with 2 guides, and that still happens. So you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough for people. When you have someone in front, then they stuff like that. They don't. That's just something that's going to happen. People just not thinking. That would have happened to somebody really even decided that would probably happen.
Yeah,
I had no time to really.
It happens, doesn't it? Yeah, it's one of them things. So I guess that's the slight downside. But then let's talk about the positives of having blind runner on your back. Have you had people like showing support, showing you some love?
Oh god, that happens. Yes, that's gotten better and better and better. And especially at the bigger races and stuff like that. Those ones where you get like like huge massive crowds, and if you put your name, like I've learned to put my name on my shirts, so you'll see, oh, you're such an inspiration, Mike. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, go Mike. Or if they don't see your name, they'll put like they go Achilles.
Can I just say on the internet, I was shouting, "Go on, Mike," giving it loads at the end of the marathon. You totally ignored me and ran past. I've been waiting there like 2 hours.
I was in the zone.
I've been waiting there 2 hours, and Mike just ran past with his guide, chatting away. Didn't even give me a wave and nothing. And it was raining.
That was hilarious. I still remember that too. So it's amazing. Even at Boston, I was smarter this time and actually put my guide's name, because I have a guide Pat that I actually have kind of bonded with, and I've run quite a few races with him, and so I actually have a specific Achilles jersey just that I wear, Achilles shirt with his name on it on the corner and on the back. So like if he always runs to my right, so I have an arrow that says Pat. So during Boston, like people were actually like, go Mike and Pat, and so I thought it was great to give him and let him get cheered on, because sometimes the guides, don't get to have the show, get some of the love. So sometimes I thought it'd be nice to let him experience that, because he might never be able to run Boston on his own, because the regular qualifying times for the Boston Marathon for a regular athlete is insane, and if you're visually impaired, it's a lot more obtainable.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's just under 5 hours.
So then again, for the people watching this, we're covering loads of topic here, but like, we've covered like, guiding, running in formation, running with multiple guides. We'll get into running with single guides in a minute, but we've covered that. We've then covered like the wearing the signage. So you're saying, having blind on the back lets people know, gives you a thing. Also having your guide's name and having a guide called out. That's super useful, isn't it? So people can see, right, there's a blind guy and he's called Mike. There's a guide and he's called Pat. That could be very useful if somebody needs to tell your guide something. Hey Pat, there's a load of water on the ground up ahead or whatever. That's just really good system, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Just to help. Really cool.
2 funny things about that moment though is some people didn't know how to read, so it was backwards. So they thought I was the guide and Pat.
Oh no!
But I was guiding Pat. So they'd be like, "Go Pat and Mike." We're like, and I was like, and then sometimes we got, "Go Mike," and then last second, and Pat, like, and then one time he had to go to the bathroom, so I was running by myself, and a guy ran by me and he goes, "Where'd Pat go?" And I go, I let him take a break. He had to go to the bathroom. And then we ran into that same guy after. He's like, "Oh, you came back," you know. Like, yeah. So yeah, no, it actually made for a really a funny funny joke later on, and then it was even better because it's kind of like I said, sometimes when you're like absolutely dying, you know, some of these marathons, and you don't think you have much energy left, you know, to hear some random stranger like just be like, "Come on, Mike, pick it up, man, you got it, you got it." Like it helps. It helps more than I think they know, and especially Boston, because it really felt like it was coming from a place of love. Like New York's awesome. New York is amazing. The energy is amazing. If I always tell people, if you're gonna run a marathon, do it once, run that one. And they're great. The New Yorkers will cheer you on like crazy. But it's like Boston, it felt like it was just coming from straight from the heart. Like everybody who was cheering you on, man, it's like they knew you. Like it was cool. It was the
That is
most
good. That
I
is
ever
good.
got.
So, if we're trying to talk people into it, because I know I've spoke to many visually impaired people that will not run. In fact, we've got a mutual friend who to this day still says, visually impaired runners shouldn't enter races. It's dangerous. It's
Right.
stupid. I won't mention that person's name. But people watching this, you never know. You could inspire some guy with RP or girl that might think, you know what, maybe I should do it. Maybe I could do it. And like I say, I've done a few. You've done loads. It is doable for a low vision person, isn't it? They don't
Absolutely.
need to be scared of it. It's
And
totally
that's
doable.
honestly the point you just made is exactly why I do it. A big
Yeah.
reason why I do it is because in my head, I envision that like sometimes when I do races, I'll run over and I'll slap the kid's 5, give them all that stuff as I'm doing it. And in my head, I envision that kid goes on to be an Olympic athlete, or he goes on to be like this Olympic, because he remembers this moment that a blind runner sacrificed his race, just came over to me and took some moment took some time out of his race to actually give me a high five. And that was the moment that kid wanted to be a runner, and he wanted to do this. Or maybe there's a kid who's also disabled, or somebody else, and they see me doing this and they're just like, I didn't think I could do this. Like, yeah. Or that a lot of the guides that I have and have been running with have seen another Achilles athlete and were inspired by them, and then that's the reason why they wanted to get involved, because they saw this and like, oh, I want to be involved in this organization. Like, they're doing awesome things. So
yeah, I must admit we've got to give a shout out to the guides, haven't we? So everybody out there that's ever guided you and has ever guided me, on behalf of Mike and I, thank you so much. Because without those guides, because they don't get paid, do they? They're just volunteering.
No,
Doing it in their own time.
the perk for them is they get to race for free. So that's usually what
yeah, but they still have to run 26 miles.
But they still got to do it. Yep, they still have to do that. They have to. Yep, they got to show up. They have. Yeah, they're. We have had. I always like to bring up there is a dark side to this, and it doesn't happen a lot, but you do get people that have literally joined Achilles to get a free race. I mean, I've had, and you can usually tell those people that they're not like trying to really guide you. They're like, they're literally only there because for the notoriety, now for that. Look at me, I'm guiding a visually impaired athlete. Or there's people that literally, there was a story that I heard. A guy was supposed to guide an athlete in New York City, and he just left him, and he just ran New York City by himself, the guide. So he literally only joined Achilles so that he can get a spot in to run New York City.
Well, that's terrible.
So it's like everything. It sucks, but it doesn't happen as often. But like I said, but it's just something I like to point out because it is out there. There are as I would say, terrible people. That only.
Well, don't let that put you off, people, because Mike and I
ran
many races between us completely successfully.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so then we talked around that. Also, next up, then let's talk about how that's changed from back when you did your first one and you had considerably better vision than what you have now. You mentioned at the beginning of this that you've started to experiment and sharpen your skills and tried new things like running with tethers and stuff and running with a single guide. So how have you found running with just one guide, and how have you found running with a tether? Would you recommend it?
Actually, it works perfectly because for the story of Boston and London, because that's what that I had to do. That's actually why that was my first time deciding that like I have to tether, because one, I only had one guide for Boston because I lost another one. We had two guides, but then I lost one. So we decided, me and Pat were like, we're good. Like we you and I have done the like plenty of races together. Like we got this. And I said, well, we'll tether this way. It'll cut down on the possibility of, someone run between us, and I won't have to worry about like accidentally getting a little too far away from you, because it'll get, tight and stuff like that. So yeah, having the tether is so much more comfortable because it's that, you're always attached to your guide.
Yes.
So you always know they're there. You don't have to worry about being like, hey, are you there? Like if you kind of maybe lose them for a second or something.
You're getting an extra sensory feedback, aren't you? You're getting like that little contact, just giving you, information that's not spoken.
Yeah, go right. If they need to pull you out of the way, or they need to, you're somewhere you're not supposed to be, they just give a little, pull you, or go over, and bring, come over here. It's like, that's cool. You keep that tight. And like I said, now, if someone decides to run between us, they're just going to get clothesline.
Just lift it up. So it's about neck height. Boom.
Boom. Yeah. So, so that's a game changer. And I discovered after doing that, and then doing that also in London, with Liz and with you guys, I was like, when I came back here, and I was going to be doing 5K not too long ago, and I told Pat was my guide for that one, and I said, listen, I want to lay down like a actual reasonable time. Usually since being with Achilles, it's all about just finishing and having experience, enjoying the experience, and not trying to go crazy or anything like that. Usually most of the time I just go there and say, hey, I'm just going to finish, I'm just having fun, I'm just out here to inspire people, and if I put down a good time, cool. But now, as I kind of get in better shape, or now that I'm like getting older, especially, and getting, I just want to be like, I want to lay down a time. Like I want to lay down a time when someone goes, oh, that's awesome. Even for like a regular runner, that's awesome. So I discovered that the tandem with you can't lay down a seriously fast time without a tether. You just can't. You have to be really
too much to communicate too fast.
Yes,
isn't it?
too fast.
Yeah.
So the tether cuts out a lot of that communication that he doesn't have to worry about.
Interesting. You can then rely on non-verbal communication.
Yeah, right. Yep. So I mean, we still communicate, but and that's really obviously I always tell the most important thing is communicating back and forth with your guide. Like you're as responsible as they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the tether, game changer. So I think now going forward, I definitely want to use it more often, because now I don't look at it as, it's kind of like when you first use the cane, you get like, I don't want to do this because now I'm the blind person. I don't want to hold on to that. I don't, because now
sacrificing a little bit of freedom,
more,
aren't you?
Yeah. Now it's obvious I have a problem, or it's like, I don't need that. Like I could do this by myself, yeah. So you have that struggle a little bit. But then once you embrace the cane, and you realize the cane helps you navigate faster, helps you navigate better, like it's the same feeling with the tether. The tether is the same exact thing now. And it's like, whoa, I don't know why I was putting this off for so long, because now I'm faster, because I don't need to do, worry about, I don't have to let my eyes work as hard anymore.
I tell you, what I found as well is my guides, they've said to me, they prefer guiding me with a tether, especially when they're tired, because like when I've ran with my brother, you know, sometimes depends on what condition he's in over the year. If he's in his prime and he's feeling great, then fine. But there's been times when I've been in better shape than him. So he's been working very, very hard, and he's having to speak as well. Whereas when we're tethered, he just can speak less if he's, getting out of breath, or like you say, if we're laying down a time and we're coming towards the finish line.
Yeah. You
can't talk too much when we're like going at it, full on. Whereas if he's got the tether, he can just be guiding me around as we're overtaking and stuff like that. So I do think guides like the tethers. So yeah.
Plus another thing I want to bring up, I forgot to mention, about another great positive thing is when most sighted regular people run a race, they're by themselves. So they have to rely on their own mental, right? They have to power through. I have the luxury of having guides that are going, come on, pick it up. Let's go. Or I'll tell them before a race, listen, I might struggle towards the end. Just kick my butt. I don't care. Just I'll respond.
Funny story. Didn't you say that when we did the London Marathon?
Oh, I did. I said that.
Didn't you say Liz? So Mike's guide was a British lady called Liz, really top lady once. We had a really good laugh with her. But didn't you say she turned into a bit of a monster and was like kicking your butt towards the end.
Yeah, because I said right, so I literally just met her. That you guys brought me over to the start, and we was just literally connected with her, and that was the first time ever like being with her. So that's the other thing is like, and this is gonna happen a lot with Achilles, especially. You'll get paired up with people all the time, so it's tough to really develop a trust. You have to develop a trust really, really fast, right? Because that person is responsible for you, and you have to literally be like. And what happens if they make one mistake? Every time a guide's ever made a mistake with me, I instantly now I'm using my own vision now. I don't trust you anymore. Now you've got to regain that trust again. So it's it's
that's
tough.
where it becomes scary.
Yeah. So usually I'm used to Pat. Remember, I've had Pat a lot. So we've developed that trust, that bond with each other. So I fully I'll go to war, with Pat, no problem. We're that cool. And I think that's the reason why I've gotten faster is because Pat and I have been running together so well. Any race that I run with Pat, I already know he knows me. I know him. So there's that's easier. So I really would I prefer to have the same guide every time, but at the same time I like talking to new people and getting with them. So with Liz, that's what it was like again. It's like, okay, well, I've never had you. So it's exciting because it's like I'm getting to run with someone new and hearing their story. And you get to know them. Obviously, you're running 26.2 miles, so you have a long time to talk. And I'm a talker, so that's the first thing I told her. I said, one, I'm a talker, so I hope you don't mind talking because this is what I do. It's a way for me to regulate my breathing. So if I can talk, I'm good. But I also said yes. My mental struggles towards the end, so feel free to just be mean or be straight on, push me. I don't care. So that's exactly what she did because she's the only person that's ever got me to run the last 1.2 miles of a marathon. Because normally I would just walk and run. I would do walk run, and I was already doing that kind of towards the end there. So at 25 miles, I was going to plan another walk, and she was like, "Nope." She's like, "I don't care what you have to do. I don't care how slow you go." She's like, "But you're running the last 1.2 miles of this race. You're almost there. You're just going to run it." And I said, okay. And just literally did it. And it's funny because you always hear, you always think you can't do something, but trust me, that was proof because I never,
that's a really big advantage then, isn't it? What you're calling out there. That's it's like having a partner or a coach or a backup
right there. Yep.
Right there with you. Yeah.
That's like another huge plus, because then sometimes you don't really realize what you're running. You don't realize what you're doing because half the time I'm just talking to them, and getting to know them because it's like especially when you get a new guide, so you're spending the most race just being like, oh hey, just getting to know, and they're getting to know you, and you're kind of just starting to develop that a bond, and then and so before you know it, if it's a 5K, you're like, oh, we're already at the third mile. Oh wow, okay. Or it's a 10K and we're at mile 6 already. Oh, geez. So a huge benefit because normally you'd be sitting there by yourself running, going, oh, I gotta get to the end. Oh, I could stop. Right. And you could just stop because nobody would be there to be like, no, don't stop. Let's go. No, but I've built in, people are like, no, you're not stopping. Yeah, we're going. So that's really cool.
Okay, good. So we've give loads of good information, and we've talked about how it works, how it's like to be guided. We've talked through yours experience on the last couple of marathons you've done, a little bit of my experience. So hopefully people have found that useful. But just next thing I wanted to come on to, Mike, I've never ran with Achilles, and I don't think I've got one near me. Have you got any advice for other people that might not have an Achilles chapter in their location?
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm involved with not just Achilles International, but in here, it's about 25 minutes in Wallingford, there is this hospital called Gaylord Hospital, and they have their own program called Gaylord Sports Association. And they are like a miniature Achilles where they put on different programs, like if you wanted to do skiing, if you wanted to do do a triathlon, which that's the program I do almost every year. I'm missing it for RP Fest. And usually I do a triathlon program with them, and and they pair you up with somebody for the bike, and who's going to do the bike, the run, and swim with you, and all that stuff. And so and they rehabilitate like athletes, actually the hospital actually rehabilitates people who have had like, paralyzed or something, stuff like that. So they're, like I said, very much a miniature, and actually we're pretty much in tandem. Like the Achilles Connecticut chapter works with Gaylord Sports Association. So there's events that we've done together and things like that. So I mentioned them because that's something you might also have, because I recently in January got invited to run the Houston half marathon with a group called the ICANN Alliance. Same idea, same principle. They're, they have a group of, visually impaired athletes, or, blind or visually impaired, and they pair up guides, to run with you. So same idea. So it made me realize that even if you don't have an Achilles, there is a chance you might have like a smaller type group like that nearby, and you just don't know that because you haven't really, you're like, oh, I can't run, so why, not gonna bother. But now that
I like that. That's a good point, because people default to, well, I can't do it. People make excuse, I can't do it, or I haven't got an Achilles. And I know for me, I don't have an Achilles. However, in the UK we have a lot of running clubs, like Manchester Running Club or Liverpool Running Club, or they're all over the place, and they're just normal clubs where people get together and go out runs. They nearly always have somebody that's been trained as a guide runner, and they can fix you what we want. And like,
there you go.
When you came to London, there wasn't an Achilles chapter available there, but you managed to get a guide even for the London run. So
yeah,
I just want to talk about that, because you're the Tubiac maniac, and you were like, I booked my flight, I booked my run, I worry about a guide nearer the time.
I was gonna run it. I told you. Remember, I said, I go, if they don't have a guide, I'm just gonna follow somebody. I was gonna do what I did like in New York.
I'm just gonna bounce off the scenery.
Yeah. I'll find somebody and be like, I'm with you.
So anyone listening to this, right? Would you book a marathon in a foreign country? Would you travel to that foreign country on your own? And would you book all that even before you knew you had a guide? Because that is what this crazy fool did. However, you did manage to secure yourself a guide, didn't you? So
everything works out. It worked out.
That wasn't Achilles. So how did that work? How did you get a guide for London?
Because that was I was a charity runner with shout out to the Blind Veterans UK, awesome organization.
Shouting out so many organizations on this episode.
I love them. They were
Achilles, ICANN, Gaylords, and Blind Vets
so
UK.
All good people. These are all because they're all people that are doing amazing work, and I wouldn't be the Tubiac maniac without the people. So absolutely. And you saw firsthand like how awesome they were when we met up at the pub afterwards, after the London Marathon. They were very hospitable, and they were so excited just to meet me. It was cool. I really loved it.
Yeah, so you ran for the Blind Vets, and did you just send them an email saying, look, I'm going to need help. Can you find me a guide? Is that
basically,
how you did it?
After I signed up, after I was going to be a charity runner, and you have to raise like X amount of money, and I did all my stuff. And funny thing is, I had to figure out how to convert. I had to actually figure out how to send them money. So I had to download this app that wired them money from here to there. So that was cool. So yeah, once I got all that squared up, I got her name is Rebecca over at with the charity. She was the one who would email and contact you and stuff like that during the whole training process and things like that, and during raising money. So I was like, hey, I'm raising money for your blind charity, and I'm actually any chance like you might be able to get me a guide? And I said, like, if not, I'll figure something out. I wasn't worried about it. And she's like, yeah, we'll look, we'll check it out. We'll look into it. So I hadn't heard anything in a little while. And then out of nowhere, she's like, here we go. Boom. She's like, hey, here's Liz. Here's Mike. Liz, Mike. Yeah. she's guided, people before, and and so I was like, cool, awesome. So you
were introduced like over email or
first email, and then Liz and I had WhatsApped.
Okay.
Like cool. towards the end, just to so we can figure out logistics. Like, okay, where are you gonna be? Where am I gonna? Once we got our hotel all figured out, and and figure out where I was gonna be, and so we can figure out, okay, what's the best way for us to find each other in like X sea of how many people. Yeah. So, which by the way, that was worked out really well even that day. If you're listening, guys, or watching this episode right now, it was that worked out pretty well. Like we just pretty much, well, Anna was a big help with that. So
one funny story that we could share with everybody is so when Mike came to the London Marathon, and on the day of the race, me and Mike and Anna were getting ready to take Mike to the start line, and Mike dropped the bomb that he couldn't find his tether. So you literally made a tether then and there out of your shoes, didn't you?
For my other shoes, yeah, not my running shoes. Everyone's like, I've told that story, and some people were like, you took the lace out of your own running. I'm like, no, I hadn't. My regular, just what I was using to like walk in, like shoes. Like,
just casual trainers.
My casual, my casual, like my Under Armour shoes. So I was like, I took a shoelace out of there, and then I had the running belt I use has like an actual these cinches on them that I don't use for where you can put a bib on it. So I just pulled both of those cinches off and then put them on either end of that shoelace and put the back in. So I made little wrist straps on both sides, and like
a total MacGyver moment. Just
that's exactly what Liz said. Yeah, Liz
just invented his own tether right there, real time. So basically, people, there are no excuses. You can do a marathon if you want to. Don't use your eyes as an excuse. Mike here,
plenty of people out
living proof. How many have you done now? 11?
Now I'm up to 13 now.
13 marathons, and all of them were pretty much with low vision. Okay, the first one you weren't as bad as what you are now.
I did that.
They were
myself.
all when you were still, struggling. And you're still doing it even now. In fact, you're doing more marathons now, and your eyes are even worse than what they used to be when you first started out.
Yeah. And even virtual ones. I did during COVID. That's how I met Pat. I did them at the track. I could have did it by myself. The two virtuals that I did on the track, which is awful, by the way, because it's 105 laps around the track. And Achilles even still sent me guides, asked me if I wanted guides, and they still sent me guides to come out and just, be my support team. So that's how I met Pat, and how I met this other girl, Courtney, who actually is now coming full circle, is going to be my guide this year, because I'm having an all girls team for the New York City Marathon. I have one of my really close friend guides, Michelle Courier, and Courtney. I reached out to Courtney because Courtney was bummed that she didn't get in. I saw her post on Facebook that she didn't get into the New York City Marathon. I said, you could just guide me. And she's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I need another guide. So I need two guides.
Awesome.
I only have one right now. And I go, I would love to have an all girl team this year again. So yeah, like I go last year.
So you're going to be are you going to be in the rolling roadblock, like V formation? So you got a barrier around you again. Is that the
same
plan?
idea again? Yeah, that's probably going to be, or what I'll do, I'll still tether. I'll pick one person to be the free roamer. I'll have one person to be like, I did that for the Gaylord Gauntlet this year. I tethered. I had two guides as an obstacle course race put on by Gaylord Sports Association. And I decided, once again, I'm going for speed. So we had a really fast young kid with me, and I had this my other guide who I've had before, Traver, and I was tethered to her, and then I had Chris, who was one of my other guys. I had him up ahead to be like see how situations look and what obstacles come up next, just kind of paving the way, advantage. So so I'm still like the idea of, even if with the two guides, I'll still do a tether, because it's just, once again, an added comfort, and now it allows the other guide, he doesn't have to necessarily stick around. He can still play a little defense for me, keep me clear, or whatever you got to do and stuff like that. Because I'll explain one thing. This is what happens when you do a packed race with one guide. Last year, I did the Hartford Half Marathon, which I've done before. And this was but this is the first time I did it. I only had one guide. Once again, something happened, lost last minute, didn't have a guide. So we decided to move forward and say we can do it with one guide. And I wasn't tethered. This is a situation where the tether would have been handy. Probably. I don't know. So during the finish, a woman who did not see these bright colored shirts, like we said, sometimes people don't, pay attention to their surroundings. And she decided, literally just for the finish, we're hauling. The last thing I remember was I saw the bumps, usually the timing bumps, going over the timing mat. So I'm looking at
Oh
them, I'm
yeah,
getting
yeah.
ready. So I'm getting ready to cross them so I don't trip. So I'm like looking at them. And then next thing I know, I'm almost falling. Someone literally collides right into me. I don't trip over them. And then I'm like, I caught myself. I didn't fall. My guy didn't fall. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, what happened? Was there a runner down? Like, and I didn't see them. Like, what happened? And I guess, and the funny thing is, this was on video. It was all recorded. They recorded the finish line for that race, so I was able to actually look at the live. I was able to go back later. Actually, one of my guides reached out to me, Michelle, the one who's guiding me in New York. She reached out. She goes, "Oh my god, I saw that you got like ran into." She's like, "All right." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." But the person that did it wasn't like I almost stepped on her. I was able to slow the video down and see exactly what happened. She was running along, she came alongside me. So I didn't have a guide on my left. If I had a guide on my left, this wouldn't have happened.
Oh,
So she
okay.
came up, and instead of kind of passing me and then moving over, she turned left. She turned right. She just went,
So she cut
turned.
across the
She cut
front of
right
you.
across, right in front of me.
Whoa,
And her back,
that's naughty.
her foot locked into my calf. And then she went right down. And then I nearly I'm luckily I didn't step on her. I must have just somehow hurdled her. I don't know how, but I was like I could see in the video that that's what happened. She was just about to get past me, but her back leg got stuck in between mine, and then that was it. So
we just
terrible.
spent like 20 minutes convincing people to do it, and now you've terrified everybody that has watched the episode.
But you know what? Like that, I will say, no matter what, I'm just saying it doesn't. I still keep doing these things because it's like, you know what, something like that was kind of like I said, if I had two guides, that wouldn't have happened. If I was tethered, that might not have happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the situations just like one Achilles, the chapter we'll learn from. There was investigation after that because we had to make sure that woman wasn't going to blame me for that happening, even though like I didn't see that wasn't my fault. I mean, you know that, but if she got hurt and got up and was like, mad about it or something, we don't know. But she wasn't, because my guide actually went back to make sure she was okay. And I guess my guide said she looked like embarrassed, like she clearly knew like she had messed up. So that's gonna happen. I put that message out there, especially to anybody like actually listening to us right now, because I think it's really important if you're not one of our athletes or guys and you're just running a race, just to be mindful, of your surroundings. Because I mean, anytime you do, especially nowadays, I think more disabled people are running and doing these races, and we're out there. So if you see two brightly colored shirts or something and you're like, what is this team? Like it's probably more than likely like one of the athletes is probably disabled and those are guides, and just try to keep a wide berth and just know that, they're probably not going to see you depending on what the condition is. So, it's just, I think it's really important for our safety and for yours, that, don't just think of yourself. Don't think of just, oh, you're your race. Like, just be really, you got good vision, so use that good vision and just watch around and make sure you're not like accidentally cutting in front of somebody. And that's anybody. Like, I mean, even if I was a sighted runner, I think that would have happened, because you literally,
I've seen
it went from boom and shoot.
I've seen it so many times, and what's pretty good is, especially in the UK, they have started putting like instructions in like the welcome pack. So when you sign up, a lot of the time now they have started saying, if you're going to stop, you need to pull to the left. So before you stop, don't just stop dead in the middle of the track. If you're going to slow down and walk for a bit, move over to the left-hand side before you stop to a walk, and then you're out the way and people can pass you. So they've started getting better. And a lot of, I don't know if it's the same in America, but over here, a lot of them have started banning headphones so that you can hear.
You know how I feel about headphones, man. Like headphones for visually impaired are terrible. Like, because so if that runner who cut me off, I can't yell at them, because I've had many runners, run between me and stuff. And then you're like, hey, but they're wearing headphones, so they don't hear. Yeah. So they don't, I can't even teach them. I can't even be like a teachable moment and be like, hey, you just ran between, my guide and me, and I'm visually impaired. You almost like really could have caused some really damage, I can't even do it.
I've done a few over here where literally they've had people at the start line, like literally telling people you're not allowed to run in headphones, take your headphones off.
Oh,
like,
I would love that. I love those people. Thank you.
that's I mean, but it seems kind of old-fashioned to me now because a lot of the headphones have transparency mode, don't they? And you can get the running ones, which
As long as some people run with one in, and that's
yeah,
fine. As long as you can
I've
hear,
done that in the past.
that's fine. Yeah, I totally think as long as you can hear, that's cool. But I've been in a race where where was a portion of this half marathon where everybody has to shift to one side. So we're all shifted to the right side. And there's this one guy still in the left lane because he's wearing headphones. So a cop is literally behind him, like whoop, 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 like you gotta move over, you gotta move over. And it took like a while and he finally like moved over. But so it's not even just for my safety, it's for your own safety not to wear headphones. But during London, I was doing the same. When it got to a point where I had to start walking, that's what I would do. Like I would, tell Liz, like, let's go over, like,
Pull
go
over
to the right. Yeah, let's pull over a little bit and then we'll walk. Or is it safe to walk now? Like, kind of like we would, you definitely want to be trying to be a little bit more mindful, and even, for us, we try to,
Yeah.
with a guide, it's a little easier. So at least like if my guide could be like, oh, you're good, you can walk. Like, or if, or yeah, let's move over a little bit. It's a little congested here. Let's get, let's move on, So yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely. Go to the left, go to the right. Just, if you're going to walk, because then, someone like me will run into you and you don't want that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then just one final point. So one thing just to add and build, Mike, which we've not covered on, and it could be useful information for people out there. When I did the Great North Run, which is a really popular run in the UK. In fact, it's probably the most popular run in the UK. It gets very densely packed with people. It's one of them, like New York, like London.
Yeah.
Rammed in them corrals at the beginning. But one of the things that I did on that one, which has been useful on a couple of occasions, is I've actually entered in the blind runners section. So they have their own corral, which is in front of the general population after the elite runners and after the wheelchairs. So the wheelchairs are always super fast. They're way faster than
right.
foot runners. Then they let the elites go, and then they let the visually impaired runners go. And that was a really cool way of doing it because we got to run before the masses all started running. Eventually, loads of the fast people caught us up, but we weren't in our wave with people at a similar time. We were in our own special thing.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
anyone over here, if you're listening to what Mike's been saying, if Mike's inspiring you to do a run, there's a few things you've got to consider just to recap. So, number one, you've got running with a guide, which could be from, as Mike has explained, Achilles, a similar organization. You might be able to get a guide in a running club. You might have a friend or family member that you could teach to guide yourself, and you could tether, so you've got all that. Then you've got the other tips Mike's giving you. Get branded up, wear a blind runner vest, let people know, get your guides to wear guide runner vests. All these little things can help you. And then finally, register as a blind runner, run in the blind runner section or the visually impaired section, which is usually with the wheelchair section. And if you do all those things, there is no excuse and no reason why any of you watching this video couldn't go and do your first marathon. Apart from the fact you then have to worry about running 26.2 miles.
That's hard. That's your hardest part. I mean, yeah. Like I said, I always go back to this one when people go and say, oh man, it's so inspiring what you do. There's a guy named Harry in our chapter, and he's in a wheelchair, and he saved this guy from getting hit by a big steel girder. He got hit by a giant steel girder that lost control. So he pushed the guy out of the way and he got hit with it.
Wow.
And he remembers getting up and going back to his truck, and that's the last thing he remembers. So he pushes backwards on one foot, and he does marathons on one foot.
Wow.
So I always say that's the guy. Like, I look at and go, and that's inspiring. That's badass. But the funny thing is, like, him and I've chatted many times, and he'll tell me I inspire him, and it's that gets to you because you're like, wow, that's so crazy that somebody you look at in your own chapter who's had a far worse life, man, can look at you and be like, no, you're badass. It's like, oh man. So that's that feeling of being on a team is another thing we missed out on saying. That's the greatest thing about being on Achilles also, is that feeling of being a part of a separate family. So I'm like, you know, I love that whole feeling of being on a team again and just all that stuff. And like, these aren't people that I just go there and I run. Like, I know a lot of them personally now. So it's really cool.
Okay, cool. Okay, then. So closing thoughts then, just before we end the show, we'll put all the links in below that Mike's talked
Absolutely.
about, Achilles International, all that. But before we go, Mike, any final thoughts or tips or advice or anything you'd like to say to the people watching this that might, you know, be too scared to do a run or might be considering doing one? Any final thoughts you wanna share?
Just very much, I think you just gotta ignore the part of you that's saying like that's scared of that shirt, like I was, or you know, you have to kind of just embrace it. And just like the cane, like we always go by that metaphor is like, you have to just cut the band, like, you know, let the band take the band-aid off. Don't worry about it. They're gonna take care of you. That's the thing. Like, you know, if you're part of a, you know, most all these chapters, I've met a few different president chapters from Achilles, and they've all been really amazing people. So you're always in good hands. So just don't be afraid of that. And then if that one thing this time, if that's gonna be the one thing that's gonna stop you is, you know, is worrying about the shirt or something like that. Like, don't worry about it. Like, trust me, like you're gonna when you have people cheering for you, you're gonna love wearing that shirt. It's gonna be the greatest thing ever.
Well, folks, that'll just about do it for this week. As always, don't forget to hit us up on all of the social media platforms. And if not already, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Really helps us out.